big news in the past week. This new for-profit venture launched by PGA Tour and Strategic Sports Group. This investment of $1.5 billion in equity in PGA Tour enterprises that the membership will gain $3 billion in total. Player grants, which vest over time, will be based on career achievements and future participation as well. The deal leaves room for a future co-investment from the Public Investment Fund. Also, a lot of chatter about whether LIV golfers should be welcomed back to the PGA Tour. Here's Justin Thomas.
I'm not necessarily super adamant in one way or the other. I think I want the best product and the best players. I would say that, you know, there's a handful of players on LIV that would make the tour a better place, but I'm definitely not in the agreement that should just be able to come back that easily. I think there's a lot of us that made sacrifices and we're very, you know, either whether it's true to our word or what we believe in, or just didn't make that decision. And I totally understand that things are changing and things are getting better, but I would have a hard time with it, and I think a lot of guys would have a hard time with it, and I'm sure we don't need to convince you why we would have a hard time with it. So, I mean, I think there's a scenario somewhere, whatever it is, down the road of some kind of version of some guys being back, but when and what that is, I have no idea.
And then do you get the sense that Strategic Sports Group is going to make significant changes to the PGA Tour? Because obviously they're investing money, they want to change the product. Or do you think it will look pretty similar, at least initially?
I'm not sure. I really don't know. Like you said, I mean, it's not, you don't get to be who they are, and you also don't invest that much money for fun just because you love the game of golf. Like, clearly this is something that they view as an investment, and to be able to have it grow, which is exciting as a player, but also as a fan of golf, because for that to continue to grow and get better, then our product is going to get better, which is going to be more fan friendly to watch. You know, everything about it should continue to get better and more watchable and enjoyable, and just people wanting to be fans of golf. So that part of it is exciting to me, both as a player and as a fan.
See, Damon, we spend a lot of time talking about the macro issues in the game around all of this stuff in terms of what a future landscape looks like and how this game is going to fundamentally change. But probably the most compelling of all of the micro issues on this is the idea of how the players come together in some future landscape, regardless of what the actual tours do or the involvement between the Europeans, the Saudis, and the PGA Tour. How players are willing to negotiate to have other players come back. And it brings you back to the whole leverage question. And, you know, we've seen the leverage pendulum swing. When John Ram left, it felt very much as though the leverage in negotiations had moved to the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. Now, with the private equity backing from the Strategic Sports Group, it seems as though the leverage is here. But if you look at where the player leverage is, it's only in one place. The only players with leverage are here. And that was really exposed this week with the comments by Carlos Ortiz, a LIV player, in an interview, who talked about the absence of world ranking points for LIV players. And he made explicitly clear that he was promised players, that LIV players were promised they would get official world golf ranking points, which was not in the gift of Greg Norman to promise anything of that sort. And so those players don't have leverage. They are chattel. They are contracted to do what they are told to do, and they will do what they are told to do. We've even seen Bloomberg report today that the Saudis have threatened to imprison any of their advisors or consultants based in the United States who are actually, if they cooperate with a congressional probe into any investigation into a merger or to their dealings in the United States. So these aren't people who give leverage to the employees. The employees on the PGA Tour are essentially the owners. Now, the players, they are the guys who have the thumb on the scale in their favor. And so what they want in terms of bringing these guys back in the future is going to largely dictate what happens. And that has a knock-on impact on what's going to happen in this actual negotiation.
Yeah, the players are navigating a lot of issues these days, including the weather, as you can see, we've got our tarp up behind us, and it's very wet at TPC Scottsdale. Some hail falling right now. I mean, look at this. That's not unfamiliar here.
Only an Irish guy could bring hail to the desert.
But among those issues, Eamon, is whether these players will be welcomed back. And you talk about who has kind of the strength of the pendulum and who's got the thumb on the scale. It seems to be a sentiment that is growing, that from the likes of Scotty Scheffler, who we just spoke to, and Justin Thomas, who you heard from, and Jordan Spieth, who spoke last week at Pebble, that there should be some sort of penalty, that you can't just, weaken your previous employer at best or try to burn the house down at worst and then suddenly expect to be welcomed back on a bed of roses.
And it's a tricky thing. You heard Justin Thomas say he thinks there are a handful of players on the LIV Tour who would make the PGA Tour a better product. Sure. And that's demonstrably true. Yeah. But you also have heard it basically said by Scotty Scheffler that some guys left and sued. And it's impossible, though, to draw a line around particular individuals in a situation like this. There's going to have to be one standard set, and it applies to everyone. But there's a clear sentiment. These guys don't want Phil Mickelson back. They don't want the guy who they believe attempted to burn down their tour. They want a Brooks Koepka who didn't litigate, has not kind of badmouthed his tour. Same with Dustin Johnson. But that standard is going to be very difficult to apply in an ad hoc basis. Whatever is agreed at some point, assuming anything is agreed, that we even get to that point of a conversation, it's going to have to equally apply to everyone, and that's going to be a tough sell in the locker room.